In our previous video, we used the string line to set and concrete the post. In this video, we'll be featuring the setting of the lean-to trusses.
What's up, man? So it's a big delivery day. The materials are finally coming in. The manufacturer had been holding them for us for when the contract was ready, so the materials weren't just laying around here. But things kind of fell apart with his schedule, and so we're going to end up doing the project ourselves. So the manufacturer had put it all into 1,000 to 1,500 pound lifts, so we can get that off there with a skid steer without any problem. Today we're going to move some of these materials around that you see behind me, get just a little more room for the next couple loads that we got coming in. They should be here the first of the week, so just going to consolidate everything down to where I can cover it easy, get to it better. Just kind of wanted to get it unloaded and get the driver out of here so he could get on with his day.
Dave asked me to move these trusses around where they'd be easier to get to. So after he gets all the posts cut down to height, we're going to get started.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a minute about how these steel trusses come, and they have these cleats welded to them that'll hold your lumber, and they're usually all kind of bent up. Sometimes they're crooked. They're welded on here crooked. Doesn't seem to matter who does them. You're going to kind of run into the same thing. But one thing that'll drive you kind of crazy is they're not really square, and sometimes the whole thing is kind of lean. So the smart thing to do is to hit them up until they're square. Now that one's a little too far. Maybe a little tap back, and get them to where they're square. Two things happen when you do this. One is the board's not crooked when it meets the other board in the other truss, because sometimes that one will be twisted the other way. So if you make sure that these are square all the way down, and I usually go ahead and fit my 2x6 in them, or 2x8, whatever you're using. One of the other things that this will help with is these are really pretty sturdy. And a lot of times you're using your screws, and if you get them, if they're too bowed out, there's too much tension on the screws, and later they'll pop. So just go through and see this gap right here. We just want to take that out. And then farther down the road, this will allow your roofing to lay on the proper plane and your roofing will lay a lot flatter. So just go down them. It's worth the few minutes to do it now, because it's harder to do it when it's up on the up in the air.
I thought he was getting ready to cut off post. Well, he's back to work.
So at this point, I've set up the transit and I have marked where my finished grade is for my concrete, and I know how tall I want my post. So I put a line around 3 sides of the post so that I could see it well with the circular saw, and basically just used the transit to set the height of those lines, and went through and cut off all the posts. And so once I get those all cut off, then we can go ahead and install the trusses, and the larger posts can be cut off later. So using the transit to mark the larger post where the high end of the lean-to trusses will go, and I get these all marked up, and that way when we're setting them in place, we can tell if they're falling at the right junction.
So Dave's been carefully working out all the details on how we're going to raise these trusses with the excavator, so he always comes up with creative ways to get things done, so I'm anxious to see how we're going to do this.
Let go. Let go. We'll see how it hangs. So we try to tie off on these trusses in an area that we kind of let it have its natural slope. They're a 412 pitch truss, and so tried to pick a good spot where they kind of naturally hung there off the excavator bucket at the right angle. I thought that would make it a little easier so we didn't have to do any lifting or prying around. We took the first one kind of slow, trying to figure out what was going to happen and where we needed to be and where the ladder should be, and if this was even going to work out very well for us. So it took us a few minutes to get the first one up, but after that they went pretty smooth. The reason we're doing the lean-to trusses this way and at this time is to give a little extra stability to the main post for when we get ready to set the main trusses. Just awful wobbly without being kind of tied together, so that's what we're doing. So we took a few minutes to go over some last minute calculations to make sure that the angle was right and that the posts were spaced properly. We had taken all these measurements into account when setting this up, but we really didn't have a way to check the geometry of the trusses. So you know, if this is right and that's right, and it, you know, then the angle should be about right. So that's kind of what we were going through there. And as you can tell on this last post, the concrete is a little high. We're going to have to maybe take that down a couple of inches just to give us a good pour around that post when we pour the front patio.
Thanks for following along with us on our Barndominium build. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so you can catch us setting the large trusses. Oh, and now would be a good time to help us out and hit the thumbs up button.
This snorkel lift is a great older machine. You know, it has been a little temperamental at times, so we're trying to work through a few little bugs. I think it's due for batteries, and it's got like 8 batteries in it, and I'm not sure about some micro switches on the directions, maybe wearing out, making bad contact. So we've got a few little bugs that we need to tweak out of it, but otherwise it's a really nice machine.
Dave worked out this system so well that it all went real smooth. All I had to do is just guide it into location, and then he came along and bolted it up where it needed to go.
As you can see, having a lift available makes all the difference in the world. If you had to go up and down ladders as many times as we went up and down that lift, and this is just the beginning, so I mean it becomes a very valuable tool to have around.
And the last one's up. A job well done. Coming up next will be the tricky part, setting these large trusses on these 18-foot tall posts.